Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. If it is your first time, welcome, and please do feel free to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Anyways, as you can see by the title of this video, we are finally doing my birth and delivery story. Finally guys, it's about almost 5 months later because Penny is turning 5 months next week. So wow guys, 5 months later I come back. I'm so sorry, I apologize. Hopefully we'll be able to do this as fast as we can because I'm sweating. Like, I haven't done my makeup in a long time. I did it today and I don't know how I feel. So where do I start? My story might be all over the place because that's how I was feeling on that specific day. I don't really remember much details, but I will be able to bring up something. On the 10th of September, that is the date I was given, the prediction date, my EDD date. I was actually predicted to give birth on that date. That day comes and nothing. So I'm there panicking like, okay, the date is here, nothing yet. What's the way forward? The 11th comes and wow guys, nothing. And at that point I'm like, okay, I understand that it's just a prediction date. It's not the exact date. I shouldn't be expecting the baby to come at that day. But obviously, because I'm a first-time mom, it's my first time giving birth. I'm all feeling all types of emotions. And then, okay, that day come and it pass. So the 12th comes. Actually, the night of the 11th, during midnight at like 4. Not during midnight, at like during morning hours. It was at around 3 o'clock. I don't remember exactly what time it was, but I felt something, and then I'm like, oh my gosh, did my water break? And immediately I stand up, I go to the toilet, and it was my mucus plug that was coming out. I was like, okay, this is at least a good sign. Then I told myself, okay, this is just the mucus plug. Don't call anybody, relax, calm down, go back to sleep. So I did that. In the morning around 5 a.m, I'm like, okay, looks like I'm gonna give birth today. So like my mind is already preparing itself. So then as soon as I wake up around 6 a.m, and then I texted my boyfriend at that time and I was like, you know what, I am releasing my mucus plug, looks like I might give birth today. And then he was like, okay, do you think I should go to school? And I'm like, no, it's okay, you can go to school. I think I'll be fine. Anyways, even if I'm going to give birth, it's not going to be as fast as like I'm going to deliver now and everything. So then he went to school and he was like, okay, anyways, in case anything happens, my friends are at home, because his house is like about 5 minutes drive from my house. It's like my friends are at home. So in case of anything, call one of them to come get you and we'll meet at the hospital in case of anything. Okay, so at that moment, guys, I don't know what was going on with me. So immediately I started texting my doctor friend. So I was like, hi Dan, looks like I just released my mucus plug during morning hours. Do you think I'm gonna give birth today? And he starts laughing. He's like, you know what, Tina, relax, take your time, stay at home, drink your tea, just relax, have a normal day. Don't rush to the hospital as yet, because you could release your mucus plug and it doesn't mean that you're gonna give birth there and then. I was like, okay, fine. And then I guess I just started getting nervous. I woke up, I started cleaning the house, guys. Like that day I cleaned the house, it was shining. Do you know how like I was mopping the floors, I was doing everything? And then I decided, okay, fine, let me start walking around in the house, because at that moment I was like, okay. Then I started getting mild contractions. Mild contractions as in I'm not feeling the pain, but it is there, but like you can bear it. Like it's just a little pain that's there. So I'm like, okay, fine. At that moment I had downloaded the contraction app, and I was like, okay, fine, I think I'm gonna start timing my contractions. You know, at that time I'm just excited, I don't know what's going on. So I was like, okay, let me time my contraction. I time it, and I think it was like 15 minutes apart, 20 minutes apart. I was like, no, right now it's still okay. So then I'm just watching TV, relaxed. I decided to eat something. I'm just relaxed. I started watching movies, but you know, contraction keeps coming and then they go back. Guys, Penny is here while I'm recording, so apologies in case you hear funny noises in the background of the video. So at that time, then I think I had dinner, and it was around 8 a.m. The contractions started becoming stronger, like they were a bit more painful, and I'm like, okay, I think they're more painful, but I think I can sleep through the night. Let me wait. So then the contractions become more and more. At around 10 p.m., I texted my boyfriend, and I'm like, you know what? I think we'll have to go to the hospital tonight. At around from 8 p.m. to around 10 p.m., the contractions started becoming more and more. So as soon as he came in, I don't know how he knew it, but I think he just realized, or he noticed, that I wanted to be alone. So because every time the contraction comes, I'll hold a pillow and then just hold it in and then relax. So I actually didn't want him seeing me in that state. I don't know, like at that moment I really just didn't want anybody next to me. And the funny thing is, he was texting me like, are you having a contraction? At that moment I'm even replying, I'm like, yes. Okay, so then he slept, and then I joined him in bed, and I managed to like keep the pain till like midnight. At midnight I was like, you know what, I don't think I can wait any longer, like the pain is becoming more and stuff. I think we should go to the hospital. So as we are on our way to the hospital, guys, you know, at that point where like you are in pain, every hump you can feel it. Like, you know, he was literally driving so slow, but I could still feel the pain. Like while the car is moving, I could feel the pain. So then I think he was cracking jokes. For some reason, he's always in the mood for like, he was not even cracking jokes. He was just having a normal conversation with me. But then I was like, please don't make jokes because I can't laugh. But he's like, I'm just having a normal conversation with you. But the thing is, every time he says something, whatever he says, for some reason, it's just funny. I don't know. Then we get to the hospital, and we found a gentleman nurse, which is a student nurse from UNAM. I remember very well because he was wearing maroon. And then he starts asking me, so what's wrong? I'm like, I'm having contractions. He's like, when did it start? I explained to him when it started, and then he's like, okay, before I actually take you in, I need to like examine you and see how far much you have, how far you've dilated, how much you have dilated. I don't know if I'm saying it the right way. And then okay, he takes my blood pressure. No, he didn't take my blood pressure first. He first started checking me, and then he actually had to like put his fingers in me to see how far dilated I was. Guys, imagine I was in pain the whole day, like from, let me say, midday to midnight, and the time we got to the hospital, it was like at 1 a.m. and I was only 2 centimeters, guys. And he's like, I see you're in labor, but you're really fast, so we cannot actually take you in now. For us to do that, you have to be at 4 centimeters. And then after he said that, he's like, okay. Then he checks my blood pressure, and he's like, oh my gosh, no, your blood pressure is really high. I need to admit you now. And then immediately he at that point, my boyfriend is outside in the car, and then because I had my phone on me, I told him that I'm going to be admitted because my blood pressure is high. I don't really remember. I don't think I texted him, but anyways, then they decide to take me to the high risk room. I'm like, why am I in the high risk room? Okay, and then later they're like, no, just because you're a first time mom, it's like you're a preemie gravida, so we need to monitor you, and because your blood pressure is high. I'm like, okay, great, now it makes sense. At that point, I'm just there laying around in pain, and then at some point I remember I was like, oh wait, I didn't even communicate. Let me go outside. I think I was thirsty at that time. I went outside in the car. I went to get my bottle of water. At that time it was around, I think, 3 a.m. 4. was like, you're still here, you don't have to be here. I told him, no, you can go home. I think I'll be fine. In case of anything, I'll text you. And then he went home. And the next morning, it's like, at that time I was like, okay, fine. It was in the morning. I think the doctors were doing a shift handover where they were like doing the shift handover, and they explained that, no, I came in last night, I'm still not fully dilated, and they're just waiting for my labor to progress. And then the doctor is like, because the nurse was like, no, she's been here since the AMs. She's not fully dilated yet, she's not progressing. I think we'll have to induce her labor. So at that moment, I'm like, all the stories I've heard of inducing labor, I was like, guy, no, I don't think. Like at that moment, I was just like, so I came in during the AMs on the 12th of September. So right now we are on the 13th of September during the morning hours. So I was like, wow, they're gonna induce my labor. So at that moment, I was just like, okay, fine. In case of anything, I'm gonna refuse that, because I was just like, they should just let me progress. And then the doctor comes in and he's like, she's a preemie, let her be. Don't do anything to her, just let her labor progress. Like, okay, great, I'm doing this, I've got this. So then at that time, my pain started like increasing, my contractions started becoming more and more. So then that was around, okay, that's around 12 midday, and okay, they started becoming more. Then I'm like, okay, let me start timing my contractions. I started timing them. They were 5 minutes apart, 6 minutes apart, 7 minutes apart. I'm like, okay, now is the time. I guess the baby is coming. This is the day I'm going to deliver. And then the nurse decides to how much I've progressed. Guys, I'm still at 2 centimeters. And at that point, I'm like, so when do I actually get to 10 centimeters? I've been here since 1 a.m. and I've been at 2 centimeters. Right now, it's 12 midday and I'm still at 2 centimeters. At that time, I'm stressing out. I'm just like, wow, guys, this is not an easy thing. So at that time, I decide, okay, fine. Since I'm not progressing, let me take my dress. Let me go walk around. Okay, so I go outside. Mind you, at that time, since the 12th, I didn't tell my mom anything, because I was just like, I don't want to stress her out. I actually wanted to call her, you know, at that time when I already had given birth, and I just call her and I like, come to the hospital, I've just given birth, come meet your grandchild and stuff like that. So at that time, more than ever, I started thinking of my mom. And then as I was walking, I walked up and down, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna call my mom. I called my mom. Okay, so around that time when I went to start walking around, it was like around 3 p.m. I started going to walk around at 3 p.m. and then yeah, I started walking around at 3 p.m. and then I called my mom. I told her, okay, mom, I'm at the hospital, I'm in labor, I still haven't had the baby. I came in last night during the AMs, but I don't want you to come here yet. At least now I've told my mom is aware of this. And yeah, okay, so I go back in the room. At that moment, I'm tired and I decide to sleep. Mind you that sleeping is not even sleeping anymore, because you are literally in pain, guys. Like, if I have to tell you of what birth pain is, you guys, it's not a joke. That is something else. So I sleep. So around 4 p.m. my water breaks. I was like, Lord, looks like I'm about to give birth. You know, like I'm all excited and stuff. Then the doctor came in and I was like, my water just broke. And then the doctor was like, okay, great. Lift up your legs. I need to see if everything is fine, just to make sure your umbilical cord is not around the baby and stuff like that. So then he checks me and he's like, okay, I see we're progressing. You're at 4 centimeters. At that time, I'm like, my water broke and I'm just at 4 centimeters after all the walking I've done. Just 4 centimeters. Guys, mind you, I'm on day 2. Like, literally when I got there, 2 centimeters, I've just added 2. So I'm like, the other 6, how long is it gonna get me to get there? So then at that night was, wow, guys. As soon as my water broke, you know, I just felt that warmth. And still no baby, still no progress. I'm at 4 centimeters. And that is, we are still in the 13th of September. Then that night was probably the hardest night ever. The pain kept becoming more and more. That night I did not sleep at all. I remember there was a lady that was brought in my room as well, and she was quite younger than me, but she was so helpful, guys. Like, if I have to think of that day, because I was sitting on the bed and I was in so much pain, I think I wanted to call the nurse. She was in pain too. I think I wanted to call the nurse, but she realized that I was in more pain than she was. She literally got off her bed and went to call the nurse for me. And they got there and they were like, okay, fine. They put me on the drip, because they put me on the drip. Okay, they put me on the drip, and she decides, do you want me to check you? And I was like, you know what, it's okay, don't check me. Because at that point I was like, I get frustrated every time that they like check me and I still have not progressed, and I didn't want that negativity at all. I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna let myself progress for a while, let's see what's what. And then I was literally, I couldn't sleep, guys, because when I was sleeping, it's like the pain was more, so I was seated the entire night. Then the 14th of September comes in the morning. My mom was already there. I could hear nurses like saying my name in the corridor, and I was like, my mom is probably here. She comes in and she's like, wow, you still haven't given birth yet. And she's like, don't worry, it's the birthing process, it takes longer and stuff like that. At that point, guys, I was in so much pain. The doctor comes in again and he's like, she still has not given birth. And the nurses are like, no. They are like, okay, at this moment, let's see how far she is. They see how far I am, and I was at 5 centimeters, guys. 5, only 5. And I'm like, okay, an extra 5 to go, how long is that gonna take? And then the doctor decided at that time, okay, since she's taking long to progress, I guess we need to induce labor. So they took me immediately, they put me on the drip, and they told me in like, that was around the morning hours, at around 12 midday, they took me to at around 12, that's when they took me to the next room for delivery. But then they put me on the drip, like, just to induce labor, because they really wanted me to give birth naturally, which I understand. So then when I was there they put me on the drip. My mom was around there when they put me on the drip, and then later they were like, no, my mom needed to excuse me. So then she walked out of the room, but she was just outside the room. And I was like, okay. When they put me on the drip, you know, the pains were mild. They said I would be fully dilated at like in 4 hours. I think I had to wait for 4 hours. In 4 hours they expected me to be fully dilated and I would be ready for labor. Okay, so then they put me on the drip. The first hour was calm and whatnot, and I'll not forget this. There was this student nurse that was left with me. She was assisting me. I don't know what her name is, but she was so helpful, guys. If I say helpful, you know, at that moment when I get a contraction, she comes and she rubs my back, and like I literally was asking her like to do everything. When we started off, the first hour was fine, I was okay, my mom is outside just waiting, you know. And then the second hour, as we go towards the second hour, I was like, you know what, I was calling her sweetie, you know what, sweetie, I'm in so much pain right now, I think you can't do this on your own anymore, you need to call my mom, she needs to come rub my back. She's like, no, it's not a problem, she can come in. My mom comes in and she's rubbing my back and everything. So as guys, at that point my pain came, like, you know, at a point where you can't take your pain anymore. And then all of a sudden my aunt calls me, my elder cousin's mom calls me, and I don't know why, but something just told me, answer her call. She calls me and she's like, have you given birth yet? I'm like, no, I haven't given birth yet. And she's like, you know, something deep down tells me I should come there. I don't know why. You know what? I'm on my way. I'm going to call your cousin and we're gonna make our way there. And I told her like, yeah, but you don't have to rush because my mom is here. She's like, yeah, your mom is there, but it's okay. I don't know, but something just tells me I need to come over. So then my auntie comes. She walks in the room and she's like, oh my God, because I think she has never seen me in that state. Mind you, I was in pain. I was all swollen. My lips were dry. At that point, they didn't want me to drink water or take in anything. And every time the contractions become more, it's like my mouth would run dry. It goes all dry. So then I told the student nurse that was helping me that could she just not give me water, even if just a little, even if it's just a little, because my mouth is really dry and I was thirsty. And she's like, you know what? I'm gonna give you some water in a syringe, she gave me I think 15 ml, and she was like, every time you feel your mouth is dry, just like press just a little, just to like wet your mouth. And I've done that. So at that point it was around 3, and I could not take the pain anymore. I could not take the pain, guys, to a point that I was in so much pain. And guys, my family is so dramatic. As soon as my auntie came, my auntie walked into the door and she started praying. Guys, when I'm talking about praying, I'm not talking about, like praying or like, like praying where people can, like, she literally walked in the door. She saw me and she's like, oh my God. She started praying so loud. She went in her handbag. She had anointing oil. Guys, I was just like, even the student nurse that was helping me, she was just like, what the hell is going on here? And then immediately my mom starts joining her as well. It became like a church, a prayer session. At that point, like, I have given up. I am so numb. I'm in pain. It's at 3 p.m. I'm in pain. It's everything. Like, I just couldn't take it anymore. And then my auntie started praying and whatnot. And she was like, you know what? Don't worry. You're going to give birth soon. Just be strong and stuff like that. My cousin walks in. And, like, me and my cousin are so close. She has kids too, but she doesn't give birth naturally. She goes for C-section. So when she saw me, she was in so much, like, she was so shocked and she was so scared. And I kept telling her about, like, Sabina, I'm in so much pain. And she couldn't even answer me. That's how bad it was. Then the doctor walks in. Okay, imagine it's 3 p.m. now. And they said in 4 hours I should be fully dilated, which is at 4 p.m. Which is at 4 p.m. He walks in. It's about a few minutes past. I would say maybe 10 minutes past. And at that point, I told myself, I'm going for C-section. In my mind, I told myself, you know what? I'm done with this. I'm not going to continue with this anymore. This pain is too much. It just keeps going on and on. And I called the doctor. I'm like, you know what, doc, me and you need to have a serious conversation. And he's like, okay, I'm listening. And I'm like, doc, I think I want to go for an operation. He's like, you think you want to go for an operation? Why? I'm like, because I'm in so much pain. I can't take it anymore. I just want you guys to cut me, take this baby out, and let's get it over with. And he tells me, but you don't need an operation. I'm like, but I do. I'm in so much pain. He's like, you know what? You are in pain because you're in labor, and it's normal for you to feel that pain. This is the birthing process. You are not dying. You're just labor process. And I'm like, doc, listen to me. Right now I feel like I'm going to die. Like, I'm in so much pain. Just listen to me. My mom is outside. She will sign any paper you need her to sign. Just cut this baby out. And that doctor told me straightforward, like, I'm not going to operate on you. Operation needs to be an emergency. We can't just take you from here and decide we are going to cut you. Why? You can do this. Just be strong. So then it's around 3:40. My mom was still there. She was driving my back. And at that point, when my contractions were coming, they were coming with, like, it's like I couldn't hold it in, but it's like I was pressing the baby down. And the nurse kept saying, don't push. I'm like, I'm not pushing. Like, I kept telling them, listen here, I'm not pushing. Like, it's just happening by itself. Then the contractions were like a minute apart, like seconds. And at that point, at around 3:40 something, then the doctor comes in, the nurses come in. And I kept telling my mom, like, mommy, I keep pushing. It's like the baby's but I'm not doing it myself. It's like happening. Like, I can't even control it. And then my mom tells the nurse, I think she's giving birth. And the nurse is like, no, but it's not 4 hours yet. And then the nurse later decides, okay, mom, you can go out then. Let's see. Okay, so it's 3:40. something about 350. They checked me and she's like, oh my gosh, she's 10 centimeters. Then all of a sudden they flip me over, my legs are up in the air, and the lady's like, you know what, this is the time you need to push as much as you can. Don't push when you don't feel a contraction, push when you can feel a contraction. At that point I was so fat, guys. I was so huge to a point that I couldn't even reach my legs, because then the doctor was like assisting me. She's like, okay, you know what, I'm going to assist you through this. And I was like, okay, what I need you to do is put my arms, my hands around my feet, so that at least when so then I push like for the first time, and then I pushed for the second time, and then before I pushed the third time, the nurse was like, wait, you know what, I'm afraid you're going to rupture. I need to cut a little bit more to make space for the baby's head, because it seems it's a little bit bigger. It's a little bit big. Okay, then she does that. Then I push for the last time. She assists me, and then the baby comes out. Okay, the baby comes out and it's silent. Like, no cry, no nothing. At this point, I'm like, something just came in my mind. I'm like, oh my gosh. As soon as that came in my mind, I saw them grab my baby and they ran out. So then they took the baby and they ran out with the baby. At that moment, things started getting serious. I was just like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. And I remember I looked at the doctor and I was like, I told you I wanted you to operate me. What's wrong with my baby? And the doctor goes out. And then at that moment, I'm left with the student nurse. And you know, at that moment, I just looked up the ceiling and I was like, I just prayed. I prayed so hard, guys. At that moment, I was just like, God, what's wrong with my... At that moment, it's like something registered in my mind. Like, you need to start praying now. You need to start praying. I started praying so hard. I remember the nurses and doctors kept coming in and out. And, you know, as soon as I finished praying, I looked up the ceiling, and you know, at that moment where you just feel peace, like I just felt at peace. And then at that moment, a nurse comes in, and they're like, and you know, later I was like, you know what, this is reality. I can't stop avoiding. Like, every time I ask somebody, nobody tells anything. They run up and down with my files, and everybody's actually, they just left me there. They are not telling me anything. They're not saying anything. Everybody's preoccupied. You know what, at that moment somebody walked in, and you know, I tried to get her attention. I'm like, where is my baby? As soon as I said that to her, I think she got scared, and she stood there and she was listening to me. I'm like, where is my baby? What's wrong with my baby? And she's like, to be honest with you. And then I was like, okay, fine, don't tell me what's wrong with my baby. What are the chances? Like, whatever is wrong with her, what is the worst that could happen? And she was like, the worst that could happen is, right now, in the state that she's in, it's either A, she's gonna be brain dead. And at that time, I was like, what is this, what I'm dealing with? And then she was like, secondly, it's either she said it's either the baby can die. That's what she said first. And then I was like, okay. And then secondly, she's like, it's either the baby can survive and be brain dead. And then I was like, what's the third option? She said, it's either the baby can recover fully and be healthy. And you know, when she said that, I'm like, in that case, then it's okay. I know she's gonna recover fully and be healthy. And then I think she wanted to say something more again, and then immediately the doctor walks in, and I think she wanted to say, like, because I think I answered her in a positive way, but because she has seen the baby, she didn't want to to get my hopes high. So then she wanted to say something, and then immediately the doctor walked in, and she was like, we had to intubate your baby because she was oxygen deprived. And then immediately while she said that, they come in, my baby was in a incubator, and the nurse had like a blue pipe, like pressing it, like literally they were assisting the baby to breathe. And I was like, oh my gosh, what is going on here? But while all that was happening, like, for some reason, guys, I was at peace. Like, I don't know why, but I was just at peace. So then everything started coming back to me. During my pregnancy, when I was at work, I had this colleague of mine, her name is Rosaline. Like, every time she would see me, she would tell me, oh my gosh, you need to pray so hard. Like, I don't know if she was like sent by God or something, but she would always say that to me. And every time she would say it, I would always pray. Every time she would say it, I would always pray. And then secondly, my auntie just called me and she was like, I don't know why, but I just see the need of coming there. And as soon as she came, she was praying. So I'm like, okay, God, is this why you send all those people to me? And I started thinking of like, what have I done to deserve this in life? And then later I was like, you know what? I know everything is going to be well. I've prayed about this. I've prayed to go home with a healthy baby, and that's what's going to happen. Then she explains to me that the baby was born with mild HIE. She was oxygen deprived. And then I started thinking, okay, so around 3 hours and 40 minutes at that point, I was like pushing, not because I was pushing myself, it's because the baby was actually wanting to come out. So that pressure actually like deprived the baby of oxygen, because at that moment I was ready for birth, but because medical terms, they were waiting for those 4 hours. Unfortunately, Mother Nature was saying something else. Luckily, at least I kept convincing them that I'm not pushing by myself. I'm not pushing by myself. And when they checked me, it was a few minutes late, but a few minutes earlier. At that moment, I was just like, wow, guys, wow. They come in with the baby. They put her on my chest. And then I remember very well at that time, I noticed her eyes were a bit swollen. Maybe the pressure, the pressure during the pushing. And I remember I asked the nurse, why are her eyes so swollen? And she was like, I don't see her eyes swollen. And then I let it slide. You know, she was still holding the pipe, helping her breathe. And they were explaining to me, like, you know what, right now we need to take the baby to Prem Care. That's Premier Care. We need to go put her on oxygen machines, because right now we are assisting her to breathe. And immediately I cried. I remember, like, even talking about it, like, really, really brings me back to that. I remember I dropped a tear. I held her little fingers. I noticed they were moving. And I was like, okay, thank God, I know she's not brain dead. And I remember I touched her little fingers, and this is what I said to her. Princess, you are strong. You need to fight this. And when I said you need to fight this, I said it like twice. And they took her, they put her in the incubator, and my mom was outside, so they showed her the baby. When my mom came in, she was like, oh, you know, my mom is such a positive person. She walked in and she was like, she is so pretty. Oh my gosh, you've done a great job and congratulations. And I was just like, God, you have to do what needs to be done here, but I'm not leaving without this baby. I told myself that. And my mom walks in and she's like, that child is going to be fine. She is a fighter. My mom said that she is a fighter. And you know what? I took it. And then immediately her dad called, and I spoke to him, and I was like, I just gave birth, but they are taking Penny to Prem Care because she was oxygen deprived. She's not breathing on her own. She is intubated, and so they're taking her to like the oxygen machine, like just to help her, to assist her breathe, like to breathe. At that moment when all that happened, at that time I was already stitched up, and I could feel so much pain. I was like, so much pain. I really cannot afford going back home without my baby. But then something kept telling me, like, no, the child will be fine. When I called the dad, he was like, he is such a positive person as well. He's like, no, don't worry, she's going to be fine. Because everybody, like, when I told my mom, she was just positive. And not long, 10 minutes, the doctor runs back. She comes running. And I'm like, what's wrong, doc? Because now I'm scared. They were on their way to take my baby to oxygen, like to the oxygen machine, and then all of a sudden she's running back and she's kind of like out of breath, and I'm like, okay, at that moment I'm just like, hit me with it. And then she's like, I've got great news. And then my face just lightened up. And she's like, on our way to prem care in the elevator, your baby pulled out the pipe and she started breathing on her own. And I was like, praise the Lord. At that moment, I was like, so she heard me. She heard me when I said she needed to fight this. She's a fighter. She heard me. How does a baby literally like pull out a pipe and then starts breathing on her own? And then she was like, but we're still taking her to prem care just to see if she really can continue breathing on her own, because she's breathing on her own but like with a little bit pressure. So we're just going to see if we're going to put her on the oxygen machine. Immediately I call my boyfriend and I tell him that at that moment. So then he's like, okay, that's great news. And then I told him, okay, my mom at that time was like, no, she needed to go home and stuff. So since everything was going to be fine, the baby's born, so she's going home to freshen up and everything, and she'll be back the next morning, or in case of anything I should call her. Okay, so at that moment it was already like a bit late. I think it was a visiting hour, so they couldn't take me to my ward yet. And then I remember I called my boyfriend and I was like, you know what, that was like an hour later. You know what, I'm really worried about Penny. They haven't come back to me to tell me anything after they told me that she was breathing on her own, but you are actually the only person they will let in right now, so please come to they will let in right now. And he was like, no, I'm actually already on my way to the hospital. And I was like, I know it's after visiting hour, but since you're the father, they will let you in anytime. So he comes to the hospital and he finds me. At that time they were taking me to my ward, and I was still in the corridor because the nurses were trying to allocate a room for me. He comes and he finds me in the corridor, and he even makes a joke about, wow, are you sure they took the baby out of your belly? And I laughed at that time because my belly was still big. The baby was out, but my belly was still big. And then he's like, okay, fine, I'm going to prem care now. And then he asked the nurses for direction. They directed him, and I told him, kindly please take pictures of the baby, because I didn't get the chance. In that moment, the only thing I really noticed were her swollen eyes, and I noticed that she had really, really long hair, but I didn't have that moment to start observing as like, who does she look like and things like that. None of that, because at that moment I was just stressed. My baby's not breathing on her own. So, and then he comes back and he's like, she's not on oxygen. I'm like, what? And he's like, she's not even in an incubator. She is literally breathing on her own. I was like, wow, guys, wow. At that moment, I was like, there is God. Like, if like, I have to tell you guys, giving birth is not such an easy thing. That's why I always tell people, giving birth is really like a matter of life and death. I had to stay 2 days longer in the hospital because they still had to do some observation on her. And mind you, for those 2 days while I was hospitalized, I did not have my baby on me because she was in prem care. I remember that time when he came back from prem care, he showed me the pictures and he was like, please go back at 10 p.m. so you can go feed the child. So I went there at 10 o'clock to go feed her. I couldn't breastfeed her yet because they had a pipe in her. She had a pipe, so I had to feed her milk from the pipe. And then the nurse saw me doing that and she was like, you know what, I can actually remove the pipe and try to get you to breastfeed her. At that time, that was the moment I actually got that chance to take my baby and actually hold her close to me and breastfeed her. I tried breastfeeding her, but she didn't really want to take the breast because me and her didn't really have that connection after birth. But she didn't seem like she wanted to breastfeed. And then I was like, you know what, it's okay, let's just continue feeding her through the pipe, but you'll get the chance to do that, guys. So every time I think of like what I went through during birth, the pain I went through, the scare I got. You know how I used to, like, every night, during the night, I just, mind you, I had just given birth. I literally had to, like, get off the bed every now and then, every 2 hours, walk to prem care, because for people that actually know where prem care is, if you are in Central Hospital, you will notice that it's quite a distance from, like, your ward to prem care. I used to do that every, like, 2 hours. You know, I could feel the stitches, the pain, and I used to do it on slow pace, you know, walking slowly just to go see my baby, to feed the child and stuff. So now I understand why some parents don't want you to beat their kids. Guys, like, if I have to tell you, if, like, I have to see anybody touching my guys, it's not even a joke. If you have to know the pain I went through with that kid, like, how it was so hard through the whole birthing process. I really respect mothers. I feel like everybody should. Please don't beat people's kids, don't touch people's kids. You don't know what they went through. Like, only when they try telling you their story. Like, for me, it's like, I vowed, like, through that process, I told myself, my child has gone through so much pain during birth. I don't think I want her to go through so much pain again in life. So yeah, guys, so that was my birth and delivery story, guys. It was so scary. I know a lot of people kept trying to check up on me, asking how I've been, how I am, and stuff like that. But I was avoiding people because of that whole thing, because most of the times people would, like, bring questions and, like, how was it like when the baby cried for the first time? I didn't experience that, guys. I didn't experience that, because she didn't cry, she was hardly breathing. So yeah, so that was my birth and delivery story. I know it's all over the place. I know it's all over the place and stuff, but I really wanted to share the experience and everything. And yeah, guys, thank you so much for watching, I guess. I don't want this, I know it was a very, very long video. I don't want it to be too long, so I'll have to end the video here. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. So see you guys in my next videos. Bye.